Hi everyone, and welcome to another painting guide by Tabletop Wars. Today we'll be painting plague drones, or more specifically, the rot flies that the plague drones ride on. The model has been primed with Corax white spray paint, and the first thing we will do is dry brush some white scar on the wings. Now we will dry brush mephiston red all over the wings. We're going to add a little bit more near the top of the wings and around any of the holes. This is going to look like bruising when we're done. Now we're going to add a generous layer of Reichland flesh shade. Moving on to the chitin, we're going to add a base layer of McCrag blue. While adding this layer, we're going to make sure that the paint is thinned down more than we normally would, and we are going to use short brush strokes from the front to the back of the chitin. This will leave a textured effect. To highlight, we're going to use a Latok blue. However, we're not going to do edge highlighting. Personally, I don't like edge highlighting on organic substances such as the chitin. I find that works better for power armor or metallic surfaces. Here, we're going to use short strokes as well, and we're going to try and go near the edges and near raised areas to make them brighter to look like it's highlight, but it's going to be much more subtle and not as sharp. Next, we're going to wash all of it in Druchii Violet. And then the final step is to dry brush slaanesh gray all over the chitin. An optional step you can do is to mix Mornfang brown with Lamian medium and just apply it spatchly all over the chitin in random areas, giving it a muddy, dirty look. Moving on to the flesh, we're going to start with a heavy wash of Druchii Violet. Make sure to cover all of the fleshy parts of the model, but do not cover the claws. Once the Druchii Violet has dried, we're going to add a heavy wash of Athonian Camo shade, again all over the flesh. For the Athonian Camo shade, we're also going to add a light wash to the claws. We can now also add a light wash of Nuln Oil to all of the claws. This is followed by a light wash of Drakenhof Nightshade all over the flesh. To finish it off, we will dry brush the entire flesh and claws with slaanesh gray. And that's pretty much the entire model. All that's left now is to do some of the details. We're going to start painting some of the details by adding a base layer of Cadian flesh tone to the innards and the tongue. We're also going to apply a wash of Druchii Violet to the tongue. Finally, we're going to highlight the innards and the tongue with Kislev flesh. For the teeth, we have a very simple two-step process. The first step is to base layer them in rat-carved flesh. The next and last step is to give them a wash with Seraphim Sepia. Painting the boils is a three-step process. The first step is to add a base layer of Everland Sunset. The second step is to add a dot of pallid witch flesh. I usually add this dot to the top of the boil. At this time, we can also add a base layer to the eyes. Finally, we wash the boil and some of the skin around it with Reichland flesh shade. For the iris, we're going to carefully paint a small dot of mephiston red. Then we're going to paint over the entire thing with Vallejo's yellow fluorescent. Finally, we're going to place a tiny white dot for the pupil. If you're not comfortable painting pupils, you can freely skip this step. To finish it off, we're going to use a mixture of Nurgle's rot and blood for the blood god to try and make the insides look as revolting as possible. And there we have it, a fully painted rotfly, ready to carry the plague drone and spread Grandfather Nurgle's gifts.